You're listening to NIL Now, a podcast dedicated to the name, image, and likeness of today's college and high school athletes.
So we're going to explore the crazy and wildly interesting world of name, image, and likeness.
NIL Now, covering the latest sports business headlines and keeping you informed on the nation's top performers. This is NIL Now, where the stars of tomorrow are getting noticed today.
It's the Wild Wild West, but we're wrangling it in.
Presented by Headline Studio and Reddit. Here are your hosts, Lauren Sisler and Kevin Jones.
Hello, my friends, and welcome back to another episode of NIL Now, a production of Headline Studio and Reddit, where we cover the crazy and wildly interesting world of name, image, and likeness. Later, we'll speak with AL.com sports columnist Joe Goodman. But first, we got to jump into our headlines. What's up, KJ?
What's up, Sisler?
NIL headlines.
So Jim Boeheim says college basketball is in a terrible place, and in the words of Charles Barkley, terrible place, and he accuses other ACC schools of buying their teams. And this story came out by ESPN's Pete Thamel. Basically, he sat down with Pete Thamel, talked about the future, coaching the Orange. Of course, our buddy Dean over there, Mr. Syracuse himself, our producer, has some things to say about that as well. But Boeheim drifted into the current state of college basketball, and to say the least, things got real interesting, okay? So Jim Boeheim is 78 years old, obviously has been around a very long time, and has seen the evolution of college basketball, and essentially says it's in a terrible place now. He says, this is an awful place we're in college basketball. Pittsburgh bought a team, okay, fine. My big donor talks about, but he doesn't give anyone any money. Nothing, not one guy. Our guys make like $20,000. Wake Forest bought a team. Miami bought a team. It's like, really, this is where we are. That's really where we are, and it's only going to get worse.
He got caught doing the Boeheim boogie. You know what that is?
Enlighten us out here.
It's when you dance down that line and you just say some reckless stuff, and then you got to walk it back.
Walk it back.
It's called the Boeheim boogie.
The Boeheim boogie. I like it. That's good.
Because, when I was first reading the story, I was like, dang, he just really just went out there and talked about, all the things in NIL and people buying teams. But then there must have been some conversations behind the scenes that we're not privy to where he had to say, well, publicly, the situations he knows of is Miami. And then he didn't really talk about the other ones anymore. So I don't know. I think it's, I'm not going to say irresponsible, but more so, like, if that's how you feel, put it out there, leave it out there. Don't walk it back if that's what you really think is going on, because maybe that's going on. And if it is, then we got to figure out how for it not to be that way.
To your point, it kind of gets put out there, I think, to add to the story. Wake Forest coach Steve Forbes then told ESPN that the notion that Wake Forest bought a team was 1,000% wrong. His players did not choose Wake Forest for NIL money. And then, of course, to continue the story here, Boeheim later reached out to ESPN and said he misspoke about Pitt and Wake Forest, and that the only public usage of NIL he knew was at Miami, as you mentioned. So, yeah, I think it's just really interesting how this whole story unfolded. Obviously, we're going to get into this later on because we're going to talk about Nick Saban as well. And, he had some comments that were made. You could maybe make some comparisons to how you throw out certain names, certain schools that are buying players. What do you think this does for Syracuse? What do you think this does for Coach Boeheim, who is, quote, probably going to return for the 2023-2024 season?
People are complaining about NIL every day. He could have just left it out there, but I think what really happened is relationships are involved too, right? Other coaches, I think that's probably one of the reasons you wound up walking something like that back. But to me, Coach Saban, Coach Saban is friends with Deion. He accused Deion of, buying players. No one, it didn't ruin everything. People were just like, oh, wow, like these coaches are out here having this type of dialogue. So I think the fact that he walked it back is the thing that's actually bringing more attention to it than the things that he actually said, because our people already feel like this is the Wild Wild West, right? People are already, saying that teams are spending a bunch of money to bring players to the university. I mean, you saw out in public the whole University of Florida thing with Rashada and that $13 million ticket. So it's not something that I think is not talked about or not out there publicly. So he could have just left it alone. But now here we are talking about the Boeheim Boogie. But yeah, that's funny. We gotta have fun with this because some people are getting pretty serious about it, and like you said, go publicly and get accusing people of doing certain things. On here, we're gonna make fun of it, make light of it, and I think that for me, I'm a supporter of NIL. I think that it could be done the right way. So maybe teams just these schools need to do it the right way.
All right, so rolling into headline number 2 now, Kevin. Hugh Freeze says he was ill-prepared for the new era of college football. So the Auburn football coach does have SEC experience, but he's jumping from Liberty to his new role on the Plains at Auburn. And in a recent press conference, Freeze explained his thoughts on the new era of NIL and the transfer portal in college football. Take a listen.
I really think it's critical, and I did tell our team in the team meeting that you have to decide what your identity is going to be gotten from. And if you don't get this settled, it is going to be a wrestling match that wins against you time and time again if your identity is only tied up in what I do or what I get.
So, Kevin, kind of what I'm gathering from this statement and sort of his thoughts are, what are you here for? What are you playing for? What does your heart say, right? And I think that we've talked about this several times with the coaching staffs, the pieces that are in place, because I think the big question, is it divisive in the locker room? There was a study that came out that basically stated out of 1,000 student athletes, only 8% of them said that it was creating a divide in the locker room. But, I think, Kevin, you've pointed out many times that a lot of this kind of lies on the coaches to really implement sort of that culture in the locker room as it pertains to NIL and how you handle this.
I definitely think he's trying to get it in front of it. I'm not sure he's going about it the right way by saying he was ill prepared. I feel like every coach in college right now is ill prepared to deal with this. What you got to do is lean into what's going on in college sports in general, the NIL culture. And I think you got to look at some other programs and see how they're doing it to get your program up and going. It's Auburn, so they should be just fine. But I'm saying as a Power 5 football program that is expected to be in a national championship run every year, right? There's high expectations right there, and they're fighting against Alabama. So it's like you got to get your stuff together. It can't be, I'm coming from Liberty. Well, you wanted this. You're on the big stage. You got some SEC pedigree in your background already, and I'm pretty sure. It goes without saying. I don't even say my next statement, but you need to. I just don't. I don't buy that they're not ready. I think that he's just more so tempering expectations of the team so that people aren't trying to be wild with their request. So again, it's kind of like what Coach Saban is doing. Tempering expectations, trying to quiet the noise, and I think all the college coaches are doing that. So I'm not going to read into the ill-prepared thing only but so much. I'm taking it with a grain of salt. I think they're, gearing up, but at the same time, they want to lower expectations and kind of over-deliver.
Yeah, and I think, it's worth mentioning kind of the context of this and furthering his statements. He kind of talks about, truthfully, I hate to admit it, I was ill-prepared, not for the grind. I was ill-prepared, not for the grind. I'm not afraid of that. It's just a new world. He said, we used to play for peanuts, like peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. That's what our coach would give us on road trips, $5 here and there. And then you never thought about transferring. I'm just thankful to be on the team. And, boy, he says it's a new world. And then he kind of goes on to say, I'm not complaining about it. Complaining does not help. So I'm not a complainer.
When was that? The mid 1900s? When was he getting a peanut butter and jelly sandwich? What are we talking about? I played 20-something years ago. 23 years ago, I was playing in college football. I wasn't getting no peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. So, this is 2023.
So what were you guys getting when you jump on the bus instead of peanut butter and jelly sandwich? What was it like Chick-fil-A? You guys jump on a bus, you getting some Chick-fil-A?
Filet mignon.
Filet mignon. Yeah.
I'm frites.
That's so funny.
No, we won't get no pommes frites, but I'm just saying, Pete, come on, peanut butter and jelly, to use that as the barometer for what the guys to be getting today.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? No, I think he's just saying that, be grateful for what you're getting. But it's more than that. But that be grateful attitude is kind of like, I don't know. I think it's just trying to play it small when the environment is much larger than that is my point.
Well, and I think that in this case, he is easing into it so he doesn't have to do a Boeheim boogie, right? Like he can just kind of ease into his feelings and thoughts about it. But I like it. I think, like you said, might be kind of taking the humble approach and just saying, hey, I wasn't ready for it, but, we're going to roll with the punches. I got to get the culture right in the locker room. We got to be here. We're going to play with heart. We're going to be Auburn Tigers, and that's the way it's going to be. And the rest kind of comes with it. All right, last topic of conversation. We're going to keep this one short because we're going to get the weigh-in from our friend Bobak as well as Joe Goodman, who's going to join us on the show later from AL.com. The NCAA's presumption of guilt bylaw, my friends. This one's got the head spinning, doesn't it? In a story from The Athletic's Nicole Auerbach, an NCAA bylaw that went into effect on January 1st will put pressure on schools to prove they are NCAA compliant through NIL investigations. According to the article, bylaw 19.7.3 states that the NCAA's enforcement staff will presume a NIL violation occurred when they receive information they deem actionable, such as a news story or a tip. It'll then be the accused school's responsibility to prove they did not violate any rules. Kevin, I see the look on your face. The viewers out there, the listeners can't see the look on your face, but your look says it all.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. Like, you had a group of people get in a room and you went into the war room about NIL, Wild Wild West, and you came out of the war room with this. This is the result. It's like, anybody from anywhere can just say that someone did something and now they're all just automatically guilty. What is that? And then they're on probation. Like, what's the repercussions of that? That's the other piece of it. We didn't see what the repercussions were. It's like old school repercussions where you're going to come and take a Heisman Trophy and then have to give it back years later, or like, what's the thing here? It's wild. That rule is just as wild as the name Wild Wild West. Doesn't make any sense to me.
I mean, and you think about it, it's like we got all these collectives, all these donors, all these people coming in. What are they going to create committees within schools to figure out the best way they can snitch on other schools and get people on probation?
Yeah, because that's what people are going to do. Like, this is a competitive thing. It's like, I'm not going to say it's war, but it's like, high level competition. People are trying to find any edge that they can, and people cheat. And in situations like this where you're open the door for cheating, where somebody can, rat on somebody or make something up, and then now all of a sudden that's true, that's wild.
NIL headlines.
All right, now we're heading into the second segment of NIL Now, and we welcome in our good friend from Reddit, Mr. Bobak. What's up, Bobak?
Not much. How are you all doing?
I do want to ask you, I think this is a good question, and I'm excited to get your, first of all, I'm excited to get some of the Reddit folks' take on this. So look, Auburn's collective NIL is titled On to Victory. That's from the Auburn fight song. And then Alabama just named theirs, Yeah, Alabama, from their fight song. So Redditor, Mobile Home Slice, that's what I'm assuming is this Auburn fan, Mobile Home Slice, wants to know, what is your school's NIL titled or called? So some funny ones on the list here, Bobak. Enlighten us.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, a lot of fans had fun with this. I think beyond just what their actual collective names are for some of these programs, people decided to kind of go with some of the alternative names led by FSU Knowles 77, obviously Florida State fan. He thought the Gators should have their collective be called Insufficient Funds, which, as we all know, goes towards everything that happened before. An Oregon State fan, Sorry I'm Hurt, I love this one. He said they should have their name be Damn Nation, being the Beavs. Thought that was a great one. He thought it sounded cool to him. And a lot of other fans thought that was a great one too. There was a Notre Dame fan, Telon Ranger 44. The Lone Ranger. He just spelled it differently. I get it now. I feel like vindicated. But anyway, so I actually thought he was joking, but apparently Notre Dame's collective is the Fund Friends of the University of Notre Dame. And he thought it would be Pot of Gold or something. So there's a lot of potential there. I mean, there's
Pot of Gold.
Yeah, exactly. Where's me Pot of Gold? They should just call it the end of the rainbow or something like that, and make it even have some more fun with that. But and some folks at Ole Miss, theirs is called the Grove Collective, and a Kentucky fan, Relentless Bofer, was said like this is just the name of a dispensary. There's a lot of fun here. It's fun to think what would be a fun collective name for some of these universities that really kind of play into it, because there's a lot of good humor and jokiness all around there.
Yeah, I love the one as I'm scrolling down Tennessee. Theirs is called Spire, and it says, which sounds more like a high-end crime organization than an NIL collective. I thought that was funny.
It really does. It's spelled like Spyre. I mean, it's like, this is like Bond should be taking them down or something,
Yeah.
Notre Dame's is terrible, by the way. I'm sorry to be Debbie Downer, but Friends of the University of Notre Dame. The fund.
What's the fun, Friends?
No, but I think it's called the Fund, and then Fund. The acronyms is Friends of the University of Notre Dame.
Oh, they're being cute with that. Ohio State just straight up called it like the collective. It's like they really just did the all caps the whatever. At that point, it's just like, come on, it's on. To be fair, it's very on brand. It's the foundation. There it is. Ours is the foundation, but the being all capital. So, I mean, what do you guys think? What are some other ones that could be funny? I'm trying to think of some other good schools here. I mean,
I like the Corn Cob Collective.
Oh, for Nebraska. Yeah. The Cobb Collective, the Corn Cob Collective. I mean, there's so much potential there. I mean, I think at UCFN, pardon me, I'm Grump suggested they should be the Kingdom. Of course, you got the Magic Kingdom. There's, again, a lot of potential there. That one was kind of a fun discussion. When you get into the offseason, these are the kinds of things that you see pop up on message boards, and Reddit CFB is no different than any other.
And with that, we move on to our next topic of conversation. All right, we addressed this earlier in the show off the top. I want to get back into it and get some of our Redditors to help us flesh this one out. And Bobak, of course. So the NIL presumption and how an NCAA bylaw change aims to alter infraction cases. And so we kind of broke that down, when this would go into effect, what the bylaw means, involving name, image, and likeness. Circumstantial information suggests that, one or more parties engaged with impermissible conduct could have essentially, there could be enforcement of violations that could be incurred in all of this. So with that being said, what are we thinking here? I mean, is this kind of the start in your mind to putting some guardrails up on this wild, wild west that we keep talking about?
Well, certainly when you look at folks in the Reddit community, there's always that desire to see some level of guardrails, although there is only so much that can realistically be done. And that's reflected by a lot of people who sort of come in. There's usually two sides to it. Some people say, oh, this is finally going to see the NCAA taking action, and others, papery whistle, who put it best, the NCAA has NIL rules that they'll actually enforce. I doubt it. And I think that's where some of it comes in. And some people will, and again, the discussion gets into it, and it's an extensive discussion, kind of obfuscating, getting confused about the fact that the NCAA people are voluntarily a part of it. All these schools choose to participate in it. It's not a government entity. It's not like, they're necessarily under the same rules of due process or things. They're not like not a criminal, prosecutors or anything like that. So the rules themselves, the idea of there being presumed guilt, or, however you want to phrase it, it certainly seems to be something against what folks think is justice and is right. But at the same time, I mean, it is the very nature of it. The NCAA is the schools. And although a lot of people also had some fun with it, appropriately named Oregon fan Webfoot Troll said, hey, NCAA, I heard Washington, USC, and Oregon State used illegal inducements for every one of their players, even the walk-ons. Okay, cool. Thanks, guys. Utah, see you in the conference championship. So, I mean, I think that idea of kind of making that sort of bizarre version of the facts, I kind of want to see. I grew up with Mad Libs, where were these things where you could it would be a sentence or a paragraph, and you'd fill in random nouns or verbs. There should be a Mad Libs for making these kinds of accusations of schools and sending them into the NCAA. You could say and have some fun with it. I mean, they should. But honestly, I think the general gist of it is, well, people still think this is going to cost Mizzou something because the NCAA seems to have it out for the poor Tigers. But generally speaking, a lot of skepticism towards what the NCAA could do here.
Yeah, I think it's crazy for them to come out with this type of rule, presuming that someone would be guilty. It's like the opposite of our judicial system. Is kind of crazy. Like, oh, you're automatically guilty, and then you got to be, prove yourself. The burden is on you and your university to prove yourself innocent. I think the reason behind it, though, is to put something out there that seems a little bit strenuous that will deter people from doing crazy things in NIL. So I kind of get why they're doing it, but I don't think it makes that much sense.
We could have some fun with it right now. We could throw some wild accusations at, let's see, the Sorbonne. I accuse the Parisian University of the Sorbonne of, I don't know, they're probably like the Fleur-de-Lis's or excuse me, TCU, the Frogs, but I accuse them. J'accuse of inducements to people to join that university for radical NIL deals that run a complete afoul of the fraternity of French society.
I like the way you're announcing these.
Yes.
Bobak, as a lawyer, what do you think about this?
Oh, as a lawyer, it depends. No, that is the default answer that any lawyer will give. I mean, I get it. I mean, then we'll bill you a lot for a longer answer. But I think in this situation, it is complicated because it's a private entity. You're all basically joining a club to be a part of the NCAA. There's another association out there, the NAIA, and a couple of others, if you really want to look to the real wild corners of college athletics. So they're choosing to participate in it. They are also the schools are the ones that could maybe put a foot down. It sounds like when they were passing this new raft of NIL rules, a lot of people didn't notice this was part of it. Even some of the experts of it didn't seem to notice this was part of it until it was already passed. And then someone said, hey, now this is a presumed assumption that a violation has occurred, and it is now the onus is on the school to disprove it. And yeah, as you're right, that's completely the opposite of how we approach everything, in this country for the most part, in terms of either the civil or the criminal justice systems. But yeah, but the NCAA is a different animal. I mean, you can nuke a program because some running back coach was at a nightclub in a group photo with another guy who happened to maybe be a person related to someone who gave a certain Heisman winning running back a free condo. But it's sorry. Am I letting my own USC fandom sink out a little bit through there? But but yeah, it's definitely one of those things where the NCAA has always had its own little rule set. So this isn't anything surprising.
You're listening to NIL Now.
All right, and now for our third and final segment, we are joined now by the one and only, my good friend Joe Goodman, sports columnist at AL.com. He also joined us in one of our Reddit talks. One of the fan favorites. People loved you, Joe. How you doing today, buddy?
Good. How you doing, sis? I'm glad to be here. Glad to be here and talk about NIL.
It's been a minute. First and foremost, I think, these last couple of shows, we've had some fun conversations just regarding some things happening at Alabama, some of the requests that have come down to Nick Saban. And, I teed up our good friend co-host Kevin Jones here on this one. Like, what player has the nerve to go to a coach, just any coach in general, and be like, hey, you're going to pay me $800,000 for me to come to your school? Like, how does a player have that kind of gumption to go to Nick Saban and ask for that kind of money? Like, I mean, just wrap our minds around this for a moment. Just give us your take.
You got to advocate for yourself. Nobody's going to advocate for you, okay? That's right. Listen, let me tell you about this world, okay? There are those who they take and those who don't ask. I have no problem with people asking what they feel is their value in this NIL world. I don't see the problem with that, okay? Just because Nick Saban goes in front of a bunch of old Alabama high school coaches, all right, and starts running his mouth about one thing, that does not mean he's doing a totally different thing out of the other side of his mouth, okay? Like, Nick Saban is a player's coach, number one. That's his deal, okay? He thinks these guys should get paid, all right? If he thinks a player is worth $800,000, Trust me, he's going to make sure that player gets $1.6 million. All right. I mean, he's going to pay him twice that. I mean, come on. You think that Nick Saban is not going to get a kid paid $800,000 if he's worth it? Man, come on. Nick Saban is going to make sure that kid gets paid. I mean, do y'all not agree?
That was kind of my response too. If it's young, then, we're not even talking about it. He's going to blink and it's going to happen.
We had Nick Saban go 2 years ago. All right. This is 2 years ago, back when NIL was in its baby steps, infancy. And he went to the Texas high school coaches meeting, which is the equivalent of this Alabama thing. And he started bragging about how Bryce Young was already getting $1 million in NIL. Okay. So now he's against this one kid, whoever this kid is, getting $800,000. No, I mean, come on. I think he was just speaking to the crowd because that's what people wanted to hear, at this certain Alabama high school coaches convention. Okay, everyone there, and I just know these guys. Okay, NIL, it's ruining high school football. It's ruining college football. On and on and on. This week's sign of the sports apocalypse, okay? And I'm sure that Nick was just feeding into that.
He's also setting the stage for don't be encouraging your athletes to come ask me for nothing crazy. If he's up there bragging about Bryce Young making $1 million in NIL money, then of course everyone else is going to be coming to him asking for some crazy amount of number.
And that was 2 years ago.
Right.
I mean, the game has changed exponentially since then. We used to be a single-celled organism, and now we're fully formed human beings. I mean, it's that's the difference, okay?
Okay, so this begs the next question about the $500,000 with the girlfriend. How do you take that when a player, it's twofold. We were kind of laughing about it on the show. It's well, man, this guy must really be committed to this girlfriend if he's going to Nick Saban and asking for that kind of money, out of the gates.
I want to know who this girlfriend is. That's what I want to know to begin with, okay? Good for her, okay? Absolutely. Thinking long-term, thinking big picture. I'm going to marry this athlete. I need to be in law school, all right, and be an attorney and be the agent immediately, I dig that. I'm with it. When it comes to long-term family planning, I'm all for that, okay?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, we're talking about creating generational wealth here, all right? I mean, come on. Put the kid in law school. That's fine. You think oh, God, lawyers, attorney. Let me tell you, these people operate with the absolute most perfect spotless of integrity, okay? No. Come on. We're talking about Alabama attorneys here? Have you seen the billboards? Come on. Every single person in Alabama is another idiot in law school. I mean, come on.
I told Cecil it depends on whose girlfriend.
I mean, jeez. I guarantee you Auburn's got 20 kids already in law school, okay? Law school. Oh, wow. Power of attorney. When the kids start getting in UAB's medical school, I'll have a problem then, okay?
Oh.
That's where I draw the line. No, your girlfriend cannot be admitted into medical school. Law school, go ahead.
Oh my God.
This is just what the next step in the evolution, okay? There have always been okay, I'll come to your school if you give my best friend on my high school team a scholarship. That has always happened, okay? No one sees anything wrong with that. Yeah, so this is just the same thing.
I mean, you make a good point. Okay, so let me ask you this. This goes into the next topic of conversation that I'm anxious to get your thoughts on. So this NIL presumption of guilt, it's called NIL presumption, on how NCAA bylaw will aim to alter infraction cases. Okay, so we already addressed it at the top of the show, but I'm going to read it out loud real quick because then I'm going to let you just go. Bylaw 19.7.3 states that in cases involving name, image, and likeness offers, agreements, and or activities in which related communications and conduct are subject to NCAA regulation, the infractions process shall presume a violation occurred if circumstantial information suggests that one or more parties engaged in impermissible conduct. The enforcement staff may make a formal allegation based on that presumption. The hearing panel shall conclude a violation occurred unless the institution or involved individual clearly demonstrates with credible and sufficient information that all communications and conduct surrounding the name, image, and likeness activity complied with NCAA legislation. Ready, Joe, go.
Joe, there's no way you remember. You remember that.
The person who wrote that definitely got into Alabama's law school for free. Okay.
It was a tag team NIL deal.
I mean, come on. Like every single person is immediately going to, every single school is immediately going to be put on probation in the SEC. Like from the bat. Do you know how like sick and twisted the rivalry between Ole Miss and Mississippi State is? Like they got dirt on dirt. I mean, it's just like, that's a wrap when it comes to the Egg Bowl. Like immediately, every single person in Mississippi is turning in their brother. All right. Like,
that's good. Well, what about the Iron Bowl? I mean, forget the Harvey Updikes of the world poisoning the trees, right?
Oh God, yeah. There's gonna be poison in the well water at this point. This is just absurd ideas from the NCAA, which has absolutely no fangs or teeth anymore at all. Okay, like we talked about this in the last NIL podcast. Like really, what the Group of Five needs is a czar. Okay. Who can, like Roger Goodell in the NFL, like they need a czar who can come in and say, bam, you're busted immediately. We don't have to go through 5 years of probation. Okay. That's what college football needs. And it sounds like maybe this is like the workaround here, presumed guilty until proven innocent. Okay. Like this is czar language, but without the czar. It's not gonna. It's not bizarre. Czar. It's not gonna happen. Okay. It's just so stupid. It sounds like someone it sounds like someone, a message board genius, wrote this, and they were like, "Yeah, it's a great idea." You must be a message board genius. I
mean, on here does it? I don't recall it even saying what penalties are. Right.
Yeah,
it's like they made this up in a vacuum inside of a box, inside of a box, inside of a box. Because how could you not think about what the perception of this rule would be? I mean, it doesn't make any sense from the standpoint of people just purely just saying stuff. They say if they get a tip, like what do you mean if you get a tip? Like I don't know, it's crazy.
These coaches are now actively advertising for people to donate to subscription NIL collective organizations so that they can then redirect that money directly to players. Okay. Like to begin with, like the NCAA, I think that is technically probably against the rules. And they're just already doing that. Like it doesn't matter. I know there's some kind of like caveat to the bylaw, to the terminology that is allowing them to do that at this point. Okay. Like, but that's how ridiculous NIL and the NCAA is, okay? And now we're going to introduce this, like, presumption of guilt. I mean, God.
So, Joe, tell us how you really feel.
No, I'm happy these kids are getting paid, okay?
Oh, that's
like, college football has always been corrupt in this way. If you want to call it corrupt, like, whatever. These kids have always been getting paid, and
I think it's more corrupt that we weren't allowed to get paid. That was corrupt.
It was creating like an official black market for everything. You know, I have heard directly from like, you know, boosters now in the SEC that like the new artificial black market that has been created by everything is you have the transfer portal. And you have the NIL collectives, okay? And so now there's an environment where kids are just being plucked off of teams, okay? And I think this probably goes back to why Saban is really mad about the $800,000 for this one kid as opposed to $1 million for this other kid. It's probably because he's got a kid on his team, let's just say a defensive back, a safety, whoever, and South Carolina, okay, has come to their family and says, we're going to give you $700,000 to transfer to South Carolina. And then that kid is going to Saban and saying, well, I need $800,000. And Saban's just like, just leave. Right. You're the third string cornerback, you idiot. Just go to South Carolina for $700,000. I'm not paying you $800,000. Like, that's probably.
And playing time.
Yeah. So that's what's happening here, you know. Saban's reacting to the market and not the actual rule, I think.
Joe, I should have known that we would have gotten this kind of fiery energy out of you today. I should have known.
I was totally blindsided, by the
way. Kevin had no idea.
Perfect.
Love it. Joe Goodman, folks. Thank you, Joe. We appreciate you for joining us today. You can follow Joe on Twitter at Joe Goodman Jr. and read his latest work on AL.com because he's got some good stuff on there. He's a columnist. We just said, you know, you love him, you hate him.
We want Bama. We want Bama. Buy the book. You'll love it.
Yes. Tell us a little bit about your book real quick. We'll let you give a plug here.
Yeah, We Want Bama is not what you expect from the title. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, just like we didn't expect this from you, right? Or at least KJ did. So We Want Bama. Where can folks find that? I'm sure on Amazon and all the.
Yeah, anywhere books are sold, or you can just get it for free at this place called the library.
Yes, love it. We Want Bama. Good stuff, Joe. You're awesome. I love you, man. I've missed you, my friend. Take care of yourself, all right?
All right, yeah, don't be a stranger.
All right. Do good work. Keep doing good work. We appreciate you. And of course, follow us at NIL Now Show on Instagram, Twitter, and on Reddit at NIL. Tell a friend. Let us know what you think about the show and find next week's episode out wherever you get your podcast. Of course, a big thank you to Bobak and the Reddit College Football team for their help. You can follow them at Reddit College Football on Twitter and online at Reddit College Football. I'm Lauren Sisler. My co-host is Kevin Jones. And our big audio engineer, Colin Schmeling. Colin Schmeling, we appreciate you, our associate producer, Dean, and our executive producers, Richard Diamond, Selena Roberts, and Scott Broder. Until next week, peace.
Thanks for listening to NIL Now, presented by Headline Studio and Reddit.